want that yoke to come back a little bit too. This airplane weighs about 70 tons right now. So it's like flying a 70-ton garbage truck or a cement truck. So it's kind of heavy and sluggish. It's designed that way because it's trying to keep 155 people and their babies in the back from puking. On the other side of the coin, it's a very stable airplane. We're going toward that runway. That is Los Angeles International Airport, runway 25 left. Just to give you some example of where we are, there's some flashing strobe lights you're going to see when we start going. I can see them flashing. That is Hawthorne Airport. That's the home of SpaceX, Tesla, and Elon Musk. There's our runway 4 miles ahead of us. And what he's going to try to do when I release the simulator is he's going to try to keep that runway about the bottom third of the windscreen. But you can see it's already up about halfway. So right away he's going to have to give it a little bit of back pressure. But if he keeps that runway in a predictable space on the windscreen, we're going to fly a predictable path to the runway. And that's what the FAA wants. They want the airplane on a stable path to that runway. It's called the stabilized approach. And we do it by 1,000 feet above the runway. Right now, we're showing 1,140 feet above the runway. And it's so precise because that's a radar altimeter that was invented by a guy named Luis Alvarez. It was invented back in 1942. It was put on the atomic bombs. Because the atomic bombs they dropped on Japan, they were going to be set off barometrically. And somebody said, what if the barometrics fail? So Dr. Alvarez says, let's put a radar altimeter on. And everybody says, what the hell's a radar altimeter? He says, well, it sends a beam down to the ground, and the beam returns, and we measure the time it takes to go down and up, and it gives us the number of feet. So the atomic bombs were said to go off at 1,760 feet. That's how precise things are. This radar altimeter here is going to call altitudes out to us on the way down so we know where we're going. It does it automatically. We can't turn it on or off. It's one of the systems that the FAA puts on these airplanes to keep us from crashing. So, I'm going to release the simulator. You ready to fly in, Captain?
Ready to fly.
All right, you're in the controls. And form to hold about 150 knots, plus or minus 5. And he's trying to hold a predictable path to that runway. Notice all he's got to do is 1,000 feet. That means we're 1,000 feet above the touchdown zone.
Oh, snap.
Notice how he's maneuvering the controls. If he needs to go to the right, he banks it to the right. If he keeps the runway in a predictable place on the windscreen, again, we are on a predictable flight path. That's the most important thing. Now that runway doesn't look like it. It is 11,097 feet long. Jeez. More than 2 miles. So all he's doing now is flying a nice stable approach. We're clear to land. The airplane is in landing configuration. He's not making big wild changes. He's making very small corrections because again, once you get this plane going in the right direction, it is extremely stable.
Does it self-center itself once you get in?
No, he has to do that himself.
Okay.
Now, we're getting down near the ground. When we get near the ground, we're going to shift our vision from all those pretty approach lights to the far end of the runway. There's some amber and red lights.
Yep.
And we're going to do this with the airplane. We need to level it and then raise the nose. Because you hear the 400-foot call. The computers say we're 400 feet above the ground. At about 200 feet, I'm going to idle the throttles. 300 feet. The landing is totally visual in these airplanes.
Oh, wow.
200 feet, I'm going to idle the throttles. Now he's looking at those red lights, and he's going to start to pull the airplane back right about now. Pull it back. 100 feet, pull it back, and look down, and as it settles in, the airplane lands. A firm landing, but a good landing, lower the nose right away. The minute the plane is down, you want to lower the nose. Now he's going to steer with his feet, because the yoke doesn't do any good. It does not turn you anymore. Notice he's turning to the right. I'm kind of banking it. I have automatic brakes turned on. That's why the plane is stopping without any pilot intervention.
Right.
So we use auto brakes in these airplanes to make our workload easier. We can even have the autopilot land the airplane. These airplanes will auto land.
Wow.
The only thing the autopilot can't do is it can't start the engines, it can't taxi, and it cannot take off. It can do everything else. The only thing you need a pilot in here for is to put the gear and flaps down for landing. Nice job.
Right.
Slide your chair back, and who's my next pilot?